name is Kyle Shelton. I'm the director of the Center for Transportation Studies at the University of Minnesota. We're really delighted to have you here today. And this webinar, as a reminder, is part of our Freight 101 webinar series. That is a part of our Unpacking Freight theme. We're going to drop a link to our main theme page here in the chat for you all to see. There are several other videos. There's other links to other information from the university related to freight research and some of the other pieces that we're doing this year. I would really suggest you check out the website here to look at the other videos in this series and to see what else is upcoming. We've had these four that you see on your screen now, thinking about the Minnesota State Freight Plan. We've talked about maritime freight, aviation, and freight rail and trucking as well. The trucking one I think is still to come, posted video, but we had a great discussion about that a few weeks ago. And we're very excited for a couple more upcoming events here. There are a couple additional webinars coming up next week, another that I'll be moderating on the 15th, and then another webinar from one of our councils focused on some research being led here in Minnesota. So again, thank you for being here today. As we go along, you are welcome to put questions in the Q&A. Our speaker, Ari Silke from Amazon, will be presenting, and then I'll be asking some questions, and we'll take some questions from the audience. We're trying to keep these we are keeping these webinars to less than an hour to recognize everybody's got busy days going, and these are a great way to kind of fill the lunch hour and learn some great information together. So we're really excited for you to be here. And I am going to go ahead and transition into the presentation from Ari. And Ari is the general manager of Amazon Freight. He's also a member of the CTS Executive Committee. We're really excited to have him share some perspectives about the work that they're doing on Amazon Freight. And he's going to come on in a moment, but we're going to start the presentation with a little video here. And then when Ari is done, I will jump back on and we'll moderate some of the Q&A. So thank you.
At Amazon, teams across operations, transportation, shipping, and logistics have worked tirelessly to deliver for millions of household customers and enable the success of our selling partners. Amazon has built great operational capabilities and infrastructure using science and research to build the latest technology and optimize our global network. Over the years, Amazon has invented to meet customer needs. We've simplified fulfillment and delivery and realized we could extend our capabilities to drive growth for communities, businesses, entrepreneurs, and sellers around the world. Together with our partners, we're thinking beyond the box and delivering progress from factory floor to customer door.
Thank you, Kyle. And hello, everybody. Great to be here. That video gave you a quick intro to Amazon. So I'm Ari Silke, the general manager of Amazon Freight. Very excited to be here today to share some of the technology that powers Amazon Freight Network. I'm actually coming to you live from our air hub, KCVG, in Ohio, our largest air hub in the world. We built in 2021, houses over 2,000 employees, and is our main hub that sources air hub across North America. So it's a great facility, amazingly large scale, and gets packages to customers really fast every single hour. Well, great to be here, and I look forward to chatting with Kyle towards the end with some questions coming from all of you. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about Amazon and specifically Amazon Freight. So Amazon Freight is our brand for externalizing our transportation services to third-party shippers. And today I'm going to share a few stories and examples of technology that we've built over the years that is now the backbone of our Amazon network that delivers for customers every day. I'm going to borrow a quote from our CEO, Andy Jassy. It often takes decades to make an overnight success. Well, we're about a decade into this transportation journey and well on our way to improving customer experiences in transportation with every single shipment. So next, a little bit about me. I've been in both transportation and technology for about 25 years, at Amazon a little over 8 years ago. And in our early days of building this transportation network, we were operating like many other companies, heavily reliant on third-party transportation providers. Honestly, a lot of Excel spreadsheets. We used to run all-night optimization runs for our weekly planning sessions, late on Thursday nights into Friday mornings in Atlanta each week. We've definitely evolved from those days. We do all of our planning now in real time with a lot of machine learning and algorithms that optimize our network to deal with all types of variables that are happening throughout the day. We started, as we built the foundation of this network, building technology. We're a technology company at heart. And we built the Relay platform, which is a series of different technology components that enable our transportation network. We have the Relay mobile app and a variety of other Relay tools throughout our network that carriers, drivers, and other operators use for our network. So we started with the core foundation of technology, and then we started buying things. We bought a lot of assets. We bought tractors, we bought trailers, we bought intermodal containers. We now have a fleet of over 60,000 Amazon trailers, over 20,000 Amazon containers. We have a huge network of partners, actually over 50,000 carrier partners that supply power into our network to haul loads every day. We even invented our own supply chain called Amazon Freight Partners, which are small businesses that we incubate and improve the amount of supply and capacity that's in the marketplace that ship directly for Amazon. I led our core operations team, the Surface Transportation Network, for a number of years during very rapid expansion. During COVID, we doubled the size of our network in under a couple of years. Some super exciting growth years for us, and we continue to grow ahead. And fast forward to today, I'm now the general manager of a group called Amazon Freight. And this organization enables the transportation technology and network that we built for our core network and opens it up to all shippers that need transportation. So in our session today, we're going to talk about a few things. Talk a little bit about the pitfalls of chasing technology for the sake of chasing technology, how to build resiliency in tech. Staying focused on customer requirements, super critical in anything that you're building. And then we'll spend some time going through some deep dives and use cases of actions and real stories of how we built our network and some of the lessons we've learned along the way. Now, first, I've got to acknowledge that building transportation technology is not easy. And I'm sure many people on the call are also familiar with the challenges of building tech in a very world that lives in real time and has a lot of variables every single minute. And you're also dealing with challenges like inconsistent data sources, limited standardization, gaps in your visibility for tracking and tracing, and lots of tech tools that are just not that well integrated, which makes it challenging to manage and to optimize. Then you add on, you've got multimodal supply types, trucks to box trucks to intermodal containers. You've got tens of thousands of carriers throughout the network with all kinds of different asset types. And then disruptions are just part of the network. Like, you're going to have disruptions, you're going to have weather, you're going to have road construction, you're going to have flat tires that all has to be dealt with in real time and still deliver for customers. I remember in our early days of building some of this technology, we knew we needed to improve how we checked in trucks at our gates. During peak periods of time, we would often get backed up at the gates. It was a very manual process of checking trucks in, and it would limit our throughput of our buildings. If the inventory doesn't get to the dock door, we can't process it. And so we built a project and a concept called a Relay Gate to enable more automation and technology to speed the check-in process. And we built this technology directly in the Relay app, so the truck driver had it. And we thought we had a pretty good concept of covering all the use cases. And I remember being out at MSP one day in Shakopee, watching trucks come through and being pretty happy with the result. And then some non-conforming trucks, like a garbage truck or a utility truck, would come up, and we had no use case to find for that. And the line started to back up again. We went back to the drawing board and came up with a new concept and new ways to doing it. But it was a good reminder that, you know, being grounded in what happens in the real world and how an operational building functions is critical in order to build the right technology that's actually going to make an improvement in your operational execution. But why is tech so important in optimizing transportation? It enables consistency, scalability, and supply chain resiliency. Resiliency is talked about a lot these days. I just got back from I just came from the Gartner conference in Orlando yesterday. And resiliency is a key topic of trying to understand how to make supply chains more resilient to all of the variables that happen in the world. And Gartner's definition of supply chain resiliency is the ability to avoid, observe, absorb, and recover from the business impact of uncertainty associated with disruptions. It's a perfect use case for tech. Tech can help in exactly those ways to drive that consistency in what is otherwise an inconsistent environment. Gartner research also says 92% of companies will fail to enable full end-to-end resiliency in their supply chains by 2026. That's a challenge, and there's a spot where transportation technology can really make a big impact if done correctly and improving operational execution. So how do you prevent building the wrong thing? It sounds obvious, but understanding your customer deeply is critical to getting it right. And when I say customer, it refers to actually a wide group of different customer groups. For Amazon Freight, my end customer is shippers, businesses big and small, who want to use our transportation network to deliver for their customers. But there's actually a daisy chain of other customers that come before us: drivers, carriers, maintenance providers, associates, yard operators, call center support associates. All of those customers also have unique problems and unique needs. And ultimately, what's good for those customers is good for the network and makes the network function and flow in an optimal way. A good framework to start is asking the right questions focused on the customer, not necessarily the technical solution. That should come second. For example, don't ask what app should I create, but ask how are my drivers interacting with their devices? What do they need when they're over the road? And how do we make their job safer and more efficient? Another example, not how can I use AI, but where are my teams wasting time sorting through data and keeping customers waiting? It's a mental model shift to make sure you're answering the core customer's problem before jumping to the solution. I've adhered to this for the most part in my startup days, as well as at Amazon. And just chasing a technology solution rarely ends with a good result. So with that in mind, let's dive into some use cases of this philosophy. We'll first cover how are we supporting drivers with the Relay app, and then what we're doing to make trailers even smarter. And also a few examples of how we're using Gen AI to manage disruptions in our network in real time. Like any trucking journey, it begins with a driver. And asking the question, how can we give drivers confidence about their trip quickly and easily before they even get in the cab? It's really powerful to know your plan before you get going. We serve drivers through the Relay app. Uncovering their needs involves a lot of lead work. You would think a driver drives from point A to point B and it's pretty straightforward. It's actually not true. There's a lot of complexity to what a truck driver does every day and every load. And in order to understand that, we've done countless hours of ride along with truck drivers, as well as site visits and deep market research to make sure we understand exactly what a driver needs. And one insight that we had that we didn't previously have in our plan is drivers wanted to have a plan and know what the plan was. And regardless of what information we gave them in the app, they were doing it on their own. They would write it down on a piece of paper. They would use consumer apps to figure out navigation. And it was a relative ad hoc process that was slow and honestly suboptimal. And so we took that as an opportunity to add new technology into our app. You pop to the next slide, please. We came up with a concept of a pre-trip briefing to prepare the driver to be as safe as possible on the route, know what's coming, have details about weather, about check-in, about checkout location, to fully understand what their trip was going to look like. If you look one step further, you can see we've incorporated a route overview, information about traffic and weather is all displayed directly to the driver ahead of even getting going on their trip. They'll understand their projected ETA based on the variables that we have. We also do a lot behind the scenes that you can't see on this screen here, where we optimize the route itself with all the data that we have in our network to come up with the safest route. Often over the road, there's two routes that you could take or multiple routes that you could take that might have similar ETAs. But in many cases, one route is statistically speaking safer than another route. And we make sure to always route our drivers with commercial routing, of course, but then also on the safest route to the best of our knowledge based on any data that we have, and layering on any weather or other obstructions such as construction that they may see on their route. And that's been a huge game changer for both driver experience and optimizing safety over the road. Now, if you've ever been to a truck yard, you may realize that none of them are standard. Each yard is kind of typically grown organically based on the real estate that was available and the initial projected throughput of the building, which almost always evolves over time. And yards can be complicated and not non-standard and non-straightforward to figure out. Some have mazes, some have parking back to back. There's a variety of different configurations you'll see in a yard. So along the same lines, this is a challenge for drivers, not knowing what they're getting into and not knowing how they can get their load in and out of a facility as efficiently, as safely as possible. So part of our app briefing gives them a satellite view and specific load notes about that yard of how to operate in almost any environment that they come in contact with. And that gives them peace of mind and also just the tools that they need to make sure they're interacting with that yard the way that they should be interacting with that yard. Also, as part of this process, we do security matching checks with our drivers, identity checks, where we have them take a selfie picture at the beginning and end of each load to ensure that the driver that is assigned to that load is the one actually executing that load. That gives us better end-to-end supply chain custody visibility throughout our network. So now that we have the driver in the truck, the next thing we need is a trailer behind them to actually haul the goods. And we have, as I mentioned earlier, built up a pretty sizable fleet of Amazon trailers, starting back to 2015, when we bought some of our first trailers, to the tens of thousands of trailers we bought over the years. I was actually reminiscing with one of our trailer manufacturing partners at a conference last week and talking about how when we started buying trailers, it was quite surprising the limited amount of tech in the industry of what technology was available for visibility over the road and for sensors and monitoring sensors. And we had a vision from the early days that there was a lot of opportunity here. It took us a while, years of iteration and testing to land in the right place, but I'm happy to report that our trailers have quite a bit of technology on board, and that's making a material impact in how we drive and operate our network. Now, trailers themselves have an array of customers to keep happy and to solve for. We have maintenance teams that need to know the trailer issues. The faster they know the issue, the faster they can recover or respond to the issue. We have repair shops and a series of different partners along the supply chain that keep our trailers up and running and keeping them fully utilized and healthy and safe on the road at all times. And bringing all that together is a orchestration of different customers that need to be advised with data of what's happening so they can take the right corrective action and resolve whatever issues happen as much as possible in real time. Trailers are obviously a critical part of how we run our middle mile transportation network, and investing in the technology that we have has been super important in our ability to see what's happening on the road and manage a super long list of variables that can happen to a load, from a trailer ending up in a location that it wasn't supposed to be in, and having cameras to see what's on that trailer and why it's there. Having end-to-end tracking capability with GPS powered tracking that's solar powered. So even if the tractor is not plugged into the trailer GPS always has power and we always know where the trailers are. We have sensors both on the tires and inside the trailers to feed our maintenance systems and ensure that we are running the trailer as optimally as possible at all times. One feature I'll zoom in on is tires. Tires on a trailer are obviously critical that they're in correct condition and optimally working, both for fuel efficiency and of course for safety. we have several systems on our tires. We have an automatic tire inflation system, and that's a air compressor on board the trailer that keeps the tires. If there's a leak of any kind, it will top them up and keep them full. But it also means there's something around the tire that's likely not supposed to be going on. And so we also added trailer tire sensors where we can monitor the PSI of the tires in real time and understand what's happening. And we've modeled that data over time to do several very interesting things. You know, when the temperature drops in Minnesota, as it does every fall, the PSI will drop, but that's actually not a defect. That is just a weather and temperature and humidity condition that does not, we don't need to go dispatch new tires. But when you have a slow leak and you're seeing tire drain over, you know, minutes or hours, you do have a problem. The tire inflation system in most cases can maintain it for some period of time, and then eventually you need to make a fix. And so having access to the data and modeling the data over time gives a great source of information to proactively change and keep tires efficiently running over the road, to keep our network at maximum uptime. Now, a transportation network would not be a real transportation network if it didn't have disruptions. You have weather, you have road conditions, you have construction, you have drivers' hours of service limitations. All of these things intersect at different periods of time that cause disruptions in loads. So we focus on what's the safest and fastest way to get a load back on the road. And we have a dedicated team, we call them Relay Operations Center agents, that work in the background to support drivers when they're over the road. So they are the contact point for a driver when they have a disruption on the road, and they interact through the Relay app to get a hold of them. Most of our agents are either Phoenix or Atlanta, and they have to disseminate a large amount of information in real time to try to assess the situation and come up with the best answer to get the driver and the truck as safely as possible to its destination, regardless of what's causing the delay. They have a lot of standard operating procedures, many different tools, internal tools to surface information, and they go through a tremendous amount of training to get up to speed and stay current on those situations. Because there's a fair amount of judgment required and so many variables happening, you know, it's impossible for them to make the perfect call in every single scenario. It's a really interesting use case. We've invested a lot in technology and working closely with our ROC agents over the years to understand where we can minimize disruptions and keep our network flowing as much as possible. But then over the last, 12 to 18 months, with the advent of Gen AI, we pop to the next slide, it's been a great use case for using Gen AI to improve how we do disruptions. Gen AI is designed to learn patterns and create outputs, and you can do it super fast and super efficiently. So we took a list of the pain points and things that slow down agents or limit agents from being better able to execute their tasks, and we built very specific applications with Gen AI to support the agent. So the agent's still in the driver's seat; they're still the one operating the tools and making the calls, but Gen AI gives them great access to information at a speed they never had before, with clear suggestions on what to do next. So whether it's a truck driver heading north on 35 into Minneapolis with a bunch of construction, like me on many days, and that causes a delay in the truck, the Gen AI based app will guide the agents to interact with the driver and give them a variety of different options they can do in order to make their trip less painful, working through these disruptions. The app also understands the downstream impact. So a driver might have 3 or 4 stops that day. And so if they're delayed to stop 1, what does that mean for their downstream stops? Does another driver need to pick up some section of the load? Do we need to redirect freight? There's lots of things that could happen. And Gen AI has been a great resource to expedite the speed in which the agents can make decisions, but also making them get to the right answer a higher percentage of the time, because they just have access to so much more information at the same time. We've also built an AI assistant specifically for the ROC agents to ask deeper questions, dive into SOPs, get really quick access to information, which they could have gotten otherwise, but it gets much more precise answers and much quicker. And in the end, this all leads to a better customer experience for a driver because we're able to get them back on the road in a safe, reliable fashion, using tools and using Gen AI to do it. This brings it all back to the true transportation revolution, the incremental innovation, which is largely unseen. Transportation has always been about getting a package from point A to point B and getting it there safer and faster. These technology developments accelerate the progress greatly. And by and large, they do it, one win at a time, one project at a time, one customer pain point at a time, one new app feature at a time, or some new technology we've deployed in our tractors or trailers. It's rarely a silver bullet that changes the world. It's often incremental innovation that gets you there. And that's definitely how we built this network. So next we are going to play a quick video.
Any company can buy trailers. That's not what makes us different. What makes us different is Amazon is a technology company in its heart. Through technology, we resolve disruptions. We are more efficient about how we plan our routes. And when an issue happens, we are there to provide a very quick solution. It is really a very simple process. We built it for Amazon. Now we're opening the same service to any company that wants to use Amazon Freight. We treat your freight as if it's our own. That's our promise.
Right. Yeah, so once again, Amazon Freight is the external arm of Amazon's middle mile transportation network. We're similar to a carrier and similar to a broker, but actually different than both. And we have significant assets like a private fleet would have to put in network and deploy and move packages in a very efficient manner. It's the same network that uses the Relay app, pulls the smart trailers we talked about, and uses Gen AI to manage disruptions in real time. In other words, like Eduardo said in the video, we treat shippers' freight like we treat our own freight. It's not a tagline, it's just actually how our systems work together. Appreciate you all listening today. I think we're gonna tag back in Kyle and talk through some questions.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ari. And thanks for sharing so much about the work you guys are doing at Amazon and the middle mile work and within Amazon Freight as a whole. It's really interesting stuff. And I think especially sort of this where you ended with the external arm, right? And thinking about how you all are building new relationships and customers and clients in that work as well. Can you dig in a little bit more? I think you were talking, you told your story about buying some of the trailers and thinking about your own capacity and all the things you have there internal. You're also adding in more customers and clients. How, if you are running into capacity issues, how do you approach that? How do you find the capacity you need to function within Amazon Freight?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So we look at it kind of two dimensions. One is trailer capacity. And there we purchase trailers based on forecasts and based on projected needs, both of our core network and of our external network. And we buy and rent a combination of trailers throughout our network and evaluate that on a super regular basis to ensure that we have the right number of trailers to flow the right level of capacity. And on the power side, we have a mix of power. We have some of our own trucks. As I mentioned, we have our Amazon Freight partners, which also use our own trucks, which have fixed capacity for us. And then we have another number of mechanisms where we use power capacity from the broader market of small and medium-sized business trucking companies that either do small amount of work for us or a large amount of work for us, and that allows us to flex our business. As most retail businesses have big peaks during the holiday season, so our ability to flex up that capacity is super important in being able to keep our network flowing through and handling whatever volume comes our way.
Great, thanks, Harry. I'm also curious, you ended on this talking about sort of the way that you're approaching those new customers outside of Amazon. And can you explain a little bit more how do you are you prioritizing Amazon Freight projects or products and movements over how do those two interact? I think that's a really fascinating thing to think about.
Yeah, it's a question I get every week for sure. Do we serve our network only and then also serve external customers, or do we treat them the same or differently? And the answer is very directly, we treat them the same. We take all volume that we have, all loads we need to execute in a week. And that runs through our technology, our planning technology, our execution technology, and then we deploy those assets on those loads. And so it doesn't make a difference whether it was an Amazon package or a non-Amazon package. They all use the same technology and the same assets. So they truly are treated the same.
Great, thanks. You touched on a lot of the new technologies you guys have, or if I liked your point about them being incremental, right? And things are, coming piece by piece. I'm curious, you talked a little bit about Gen AI. Another big space that CTS is active in a lot is thinking about connected and autonomous vehicles. Are you guys thinking about automation in any of your work and any of the pieces within Amazon Freight?
Yeah, we definitely look at automation and look for opportunities to make things more efficient. Done quite a bit under the roof inside of our buildings with robotics. We just had some new robotics, I think, launched over the last few days. We were releasing some information on. So we continue to innovate and find areas where automation can make things safer, it can make things more efficient, and can drive efficiencies in the operation. And there's portions of that are relatively well defined, like under the roof and making incremental innovation. I think over the road, there's still portions that are in the earlier days of that evolution.
Great, thanks. You and I have also talked about just your other steps along the way in your career at Amazon and other startups you've been at prior to that. I'm just curious if, as you've gone through your career and you've encountered, both these new technologies and new practices and thinking about the ways that the work at Amazon has evolved, what are some of the big things that you keep coming back to? I think you highlighted some of those, what I would kind of call like it seems like they're sort of like mantras, right? Or things you are falling back on and thinking about over and over again. What are there other things that you would highlight from your work and pieces?
Yeah, definitely. The customer focus one, we call it customer obsession at Amazon, so we frame it up, but that one is critical. And it sounds so obvious, but it's amazing how easy it is to get off path on that. It's a simple explanation there. Like if you aren't truly solving a customer problem, then you don't have a business like that. Businesses exist to solve customer problems and add value to customers. And so oftentimes people start with a customer problem and then they get super distracted along the way and they end up building a cool technology that didn't actually solve the customer problem or only solved a very small slice of customers' problems, and they limit their market size. And so I think that's universally true, whether it's a startup company or a larger company. Figuring out what problem are you actually going to solve? Is it really important to that customer to solve it? And then can you actually solve it the way that you think you're going to solve it? And then I also think, and I mentioned the point about kind of incremental innovation, like, the idea that, a light bulb idea is going to go off and in 2 weeks you're going to invent something and it's going to change the world. Like, I don't think that's ever actually happened. And so I think, the idea of taking a bigger problem and breaking it down into much smaller problems and making incremental progress that's still, delighting a customer and changing a customer experience is how most innovation happens. And the reason I like Andy Jassy's quote of, it often takes decades to have an overnight success is when you look back, you go, oh, wow, that was an overnight success. But like, look down a few layers, it very likely didn't happen overnight. It happened over a long period of time. And that's definitely, if you look at our journey in transportation, like we've made a lot of progress. We still have, areas to improve on, and we will continue to do that. But it hasn't been overnight, for sure.
Yeah. I think even just those examples you gave of some of the smart trailer pieces, right? Like each of those individual components are in and of themselves multiple innovations, right? Like being able to track some of the pieces with the tires that you highlighted and other stuff there.
And on that one, like, I think that was a combination of customer need and just pure grit and conviction, because many people in the industry many times told us we were wrong. Nope, there'll never be an ROI on putting those sensors in trailer. Trailer's too much of a rugged environment. They won't be robust, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of reasons why others hadn't done it. We had strong conviction that, to get the fidelity of data we needed to run our network in an efficient fashion, we had to find a path, and I'm happy that we did. But again, it didn't happen. It didn't happen in days or weeks or months.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Ari. A couple folks have asked about sort of how you all think about sustainability questions within the Amazon Freight space. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. No, sustainability is super important to us. We're part of the Amazon 2040 Climate Pledge, reducing sustainability impact in our operations over a relatively long period of time. We have a portion of our fleet that runs our CNG trucks that are powered by RNG, renewable natural gas. And that's been a big bet for us. We took in 2019 to make real progress when there aren't a lot of options in the Class 8 over-the-road trucking space for sustainable vehicles. The last couple of years, we're seeing more and more traction on EV, but still not large scale, and no one has really scaled that in a large way yet. And so we have announced some partnerships with some EV purchases in Europe. We have thousands of about 3,000 to be exact, trucks in the US that are running on CNG, RNG that operate as a core part of our network. And we continue to also do small things that make an impact, whether it's optimal tire inflation, adding half a mpg. We now are using mirror eye cameras on the sides of the trucks to actually put the screen inside the truck and take off the big outside mirror. I forgetting the exact savings, but it's also material mpg savings. So small innovation can also make an impact. Also filling up your trailer, which again sounds obvious, but the more things you put on one trailer means you don't need a second one. And so we're making incremental progress on sustainability in middle mile, while there are bigger kind of revolutionary things happening on different fuel types.
Yeah, that's also, I think, I keep coming back to your incremental technology piece. It's been a helpful thing for me to be thinking through this conversation of both of those are great examples of that too, right? Like thinking about fuels, it's a whole world that we, lots of our colleagues here at the university and other partners have been thinking a lot about, and knowing just how complicated it is to kind of test that out and see which ones work in different settings and do they get you those pieces. It kind of leads to another question. We've seen some themes from the audience on it would be just thinking about, we've already touched on automation and some of these other elements, like when a new transportation idea comes forward or a new technology that you guys want to try out, how do you actually go about like piloting that, putting it into practice? I mean, you just mentioned the mirrors on the MPG side, but like what does that process look like for you all when you're thinking about all these many thousands of millions of shipments and thousands of trucks? How do you say, yeah, let's do that one or see what it does?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I don't think there's any perfect model, but I can kind of tell you how we approach it. I mean, first you have to make sure that you're solving customer pain point. Like, so it doesn't really matter, is it going to have an impact? And you have to have a theory on what impact you think it needs to be. Then you need to be able to measure the impact, because otherwise there's no point doing a pilot if you can't measure the output, because you won't know if it was successful or not. And then last and most importantly, and I think Amazon takes a different view on it than many, like if you can't scale it to a very, very large number, then there's almost no point in doing it, right? At our scale, if we can't scale it across the network, it's probably not going to have a meaningful impact. There's obviously some exceptions, but generally speaking, it's got to be meeting a customer need. It has to be measurable and it has to be scalable. And if all those things line up, then you should absolutely pilot it. But in almost all cases, we pilot things with the intention of going very large with them, so we can scale them across our network. And then making sure that the pilot is not only to verify that the technology works. In most cases, you probably figure that out before the pilot. The pilot should really verify that you can operationalize it. And sounds easy, actually super hard, especially at scale. And so, a pilot might not just be one site, it might be 10 sites, or it could even be 100 sites. Like a pilot is saying, technology works, great, we double check that, but then actually, does the operational implication of it work? My example earlier about remote gate that didn't take in different trucks like garbage trucks. Like if we hadn't caught that early, like once we scaled that, and maybe it'd be noise at 3 sites, but once you scale to 500 sites, you haven't taken that use case, your whole project might have not worked because that variable could have backed up the yard. And so I do think like making sure you do enough operational pilots to kind of have, green light goes across the board is super key for when we say go big to scale. And again, we don't start pilots that we don't think we can scale, otherwise it won't have an impact for us.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think you started with that example of the yards with different use cases of oh darn, a garbage truck. We didn't think about that one. So yeah, I can imagine that over multiple orders of magnitude gets really difficult if you put something in and it doesn't work. We had a question too. You talked about the Relay app and primarily thought about it in its use with the tractor trailers and the middle mile. Is there something similar, or is that exact system also used on the shorter trips and sort of the delivery van last mile? Is there something, is that just for the middle mile, or is that something that is applied to sort of all of your systems?
Yep. Relay is just for the middle mile. Middle mile includes box trucks, so kind of Class 8 and Class 6 trucks. And then we have a parallel system, it's called the Rabbit app, that is used in our delivery vans.
Great. And they operationally, like you talk through sort of like it does the routing and it talks about weather and other things, kind of does that same.
Similar. Obviously, the routing in a Class 8 truck is different than a routing would be on a last mile delivery. It's just different use case. So we might have 4 stops and they might have 80 stops or whatever. So there's different variables and different inputs and outputs. But yeah, at a high level, yeah, conceptually, very similar application.
Gotcha. Yeah, lots more complications when it's 80 stops in the city of Minneapolis as opposed to 2 from one to the other end of the country, I bet. Yeah, cool. Ari, I was also curious if you can just think about like what are the spaces, what are the topics you all are most interested or like excited about as you're thinking about the future? I know we've talked a lot about like, there are small steps. And it's hard to, I guess when I think about that, it's kind of hard to think about like, oh, how do those add up? But when you kind of take a step back from where you're at and as you're thinking about this system and the externalizing you guys are doing unrolling, what are the things that you're excited to be thinking about and tackling?
Yeah, there's a lot for sure. I think I'm very excited about our ability to externalize some of these core technologies that we've had for a while that's working super well in our Amazon core network and delivering on the fast speeds that all Amazon customers are seeing every day, and using that network, to broaden it out to enable it for other shippers to get kind of similar performance and similar efficiencies and similar sustainability impact. So the whole idea behind the Amazon Freight brand is really the externalizing of the Amazon core network. And yeah, we're super excited about that. And as I talk with shippers every week, they're also excited about it. So it seems to be a really nice fit. And I think along the way, we're going to continue to invest in technology. We're going to add, whatever hardware and software sensors are required to ensure, safe, secure, on-time loads as we invest in our network. And I think the bigger impact we can have that across overall transportation is a pretty exciting thing.
Great. All right, thanks so much. I know that we have you joining us from on-site, as you said, at one of your hubs, and that you have a full day ahead of you. So I want to, we're gonna move towards wrapping up here now. One of the things that I just was listening to too is, and wanted to flag as one of those upcoming things that we're gonna keep working with you and other stakeholders on, and as a part of our Unpacking Freight theme this year, you mentioned a few times sort of the way that you all are thinking about your tractor trailers and the security and the custody side of that. And I know you and I and multiple of our partners have started to think about some freight theft and retail theft and fraud challenges. And so I wanted to flag for the audience as we start to wrap up here that that's something that we're going to talk about and have another series of events later in the fall to keep an eye out for there too. But I thought that was a good flag there too, to just talk about how you guys are thinking about that and confronting that, which I know is a really national problem in the freight system. So
yeah, no, I look forward to that session.
absolutely. Well, thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. I know this was a tight 45 minutes, but we really appreciate Ari you taking the time to join us, and everyone on the audience for coming as well today. And again, the video of this will be posted so you can return to any of the interesting topics you see here. And just appreciate everyone engaging with CTS on this theme. And Ari, thank you again for taking the time, and good luck with the rest of the day at the hub.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Take care all.